All right. Well, welcome everybody to the live Q&A for CXps knowledge sharing module. Is this number 8? I should have known that. Number 8. Yeah, number 8. Ryan Filkel, welcome. Thank you so much for talking about probably my favorite thing to talk about. So it's always good when someone else gets to talk about the great stuff. Got a smaller audience today, so certainly if you guys want to stay on video, if you want to just jump in and ask questions, I am more than happy to let you ask the questions yourselves. But absolutely, I will, as often, continue to facilitate. I do see there's a good number of questions currently in the mural. So Ryan, I think we could probably spend the next 2 hours trying to answer all the questions that are already in there. Let me go ahead and open up the floor since there are a ton of questions currently in the mural before I start tackling those. Does anybody have a question for Ryan that they would just love to ask? If so, get ready. And Ryan, let me first just give you the floor for a minute to say hi and any new thoughts that have come to mind since sharing your KSM with us.
I think I'm actually excited about this Q&A because this was the first iteration of that presentation. It's kind of like a new blossoming idea that we're coming up with over here at Full Sail Partners. So I'm hoping these questions today will help inspire some more thought into what we can add to that presentation to continue to build upon the base that we've got going.
Great. So are there any questions for Ryan? Does someone want to go first?
I know Mitch has a question. He always has one.
I do have a question. I loved what you were talking about with post presentation survey questions, and it occurs to me, or I have to believe that the use of post-presentation, sales presentation surveys is on an uptick just by the nature of the sales process becoming more virtual. Are you finding that your clients who do this are seeing an uptick in response rate on that type of survey and more engagement in that part of the process?
Well, mainly, I'm not sure what our clients are doing on a presentation survey, but I know what we do at Full Sail Partners, and we do find it as we do seem to get more responses every time to our surveys. In addition, it does always open up that opportunity for, we always make the person who's responsible for the survey responses the main presenters. So it was one of our consultants. They are now responsible for responding to those surveys. And with that, that allows them to open up the opportunities to read what their comments were, understand what they were trying to gain. And, you know, sometimes some people's needs are more specific than others. Mm-hmm. So we're able to really get down and find opportunities with that individual client based on their individual needs. And that information would not have been discovered without having that survey, and that survey being the opening to a conversation.
There's usually a lot of complex buyers in a lot of these situations. Are you able to get multiple people after a sales presentation to respond to that type of survey, or is it usually just 1 or 2 people that will respond on behalf of the prospect?
So generally, stuff that marketing does, those are broadcast to everyone that we market to, not a specific company. So we do get sometimes many people from the same company responding, which gives us great intel, because if you know those people were intrigued by that information, gives you insight knowing that they are about to make the move on making the final decision and pulling the trigger. So that helps there. But we do get a great mix of responses from all the clients that come to our webinars and our live events.
Thank you.
So Mitch, you made a comment, and there was a question that I was going to follow up on, but I'm now seeing it's on the mural. So is FSP using any sort of feedback process during your business development? So that could be after a first meeting, it could be after you submit a proposal. Are you utilizing or leveraging feedback anyway there? Because, you know, the sales process has changed.
I think that's something we're starting to go down that route and start exploring those options. We've started looking at something that Client Savvy does, which is the pre-survey with a client to get an idea before the discovery call, kind of really get an understanding of what they're going to be wanting to talk about. But I think as we go down the road, we'll probably start engaging in more opportunities of having that survey and using that survey to make sure we're really hitting home the points that the client wants to hear.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I think there's, I believe wholeheartedly that there's a ton of value. And of course, we've seen statistically some firms really increase their win rates by using feedback during the business development process. I mean, as someone who's been in business development, Ryan, you as well, Mitch, you as well, we've all been a part of meetings that we thought were knock out of the park meetings that went really, really well, just to find out at a later date that maybe we weren't quite in alignment. And so I look at the opportunity to build on loyalty when fixing something that didn't go well and kind of using some conflict resolution and getting back in alignment to build further trust and loyalty with that client by using it in the business development process. That's a great opportunity, I think.
Excellent. That's a good point, Blake.
Other questions from the audience? We'll start calling on names eventually, but I do see one here in the mural. How are you or any of the firms you're supporting in this integrating feedback into the go, no-go process when pursuing a proposal?
That's a great question. I'm no longer in the proposal side of our business, and I have a little interaction with our clients. That's more or less an idea that I had out there, is if I had that ability when I was in that proposal role, it would really help me out to understand exactly what our clients were looking for, especially in the professional services industry. A lot of your clients are repeat clients. So when you're sending out surveys for projects you're doing for them before the RFP comes out, and you can look back at that information, you can really get some insight into the nuances that that individual client likes. And those are things I think in my past, we didn't have that information. And when you go down the road and you start going to the defend your proposal stage where you're actually getting live interview questions, the questions that are coming up there are obviously the questions that they were worried about for their individual nuances. With that information, we could have already had those questions pre-scripted answers, and we could already address that in the proposal itself. And I feel like that would have been a huge game changer for us back then.
Yeah, I that's a neat idea, thinking about addressing the questions or concerns proactively in the proposal rather than waiting for the interview to be asked them. And that way, your group gets to be asked different questions the other groups competing aren't having to answer.
And if you think about it, the RFPs come out, they're pretty generically written, and they have a standard set of generic requirements. But then when you actually get in there and start working with the client, the people running in charge of that project, they have truly individual underlying goals that weren't definitely laid out in that RFP. And if you knew that those people had those in the future, that will definitely give you the upper hand on being able to, like you said, proactively address that, especially when your competition doesn't have that information as well.
Right, competitive intel. Talking about information and insight, how are you using client feedback to get new content ideas?
So that works out well because when we provide those surveys out, people respond back. And then when they leave comments, that's when we start realizing that, hey, maybe we did something that was maybe too technical or maybe too elementary. So that gives us an idea that, hey, we can actually go further down the road with this idea. Maybe this mini demonstration we could expand upon and make it more of an hour-long demonstration. Or in a certain situation we're doing now is we have a series. So we're doing a whole bunch of mini demos in a series, which people have let us know they like that. It's easy for them to consume specific information in a 20 to 30-minute session. And it's a lot of information, but it's very specific to one item they're trying to take care of, or one way they're trying to use a tool.
Great. Any follow-up questions from anyone?
I have a question. And you may have touched on this a little bit, but I know you mentioned the client feedback after the webinars. Have you been using it for other types of marketing content? So even website copy or blog posts? I know those are a little bit harder. That's why I ask, have you figured out a way to integrate it into those as well?
So that's something we've done with some white papers, I know. There's a lot of things that we try to use on gated material. In the marketing world, we call gated material versus ungated. Where gated, you're trying to collect the information from someone. So putting things on the gate, that allows you the opportunity to send out a survey, because you can send that out with the link to the information they're trying to download. But ungated material like blogs, I like to just look at the performance of the blogs. If people are reading the blogs and they're coming back and you see a high performing blog, the survey on that might not be as helpful, but that gated material, stuff that people are actually committing to say, I want to give you my information, that's where it really gets important, because they're registering and signing up and investing their time.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Makes sense.
Ryan, this is maybe a little bit off of the specific topic on feedback, but it's something you said that resonated with a couple people, and they liked your idea of becoming the Wikipedia for Deltec, just the one-stop shop for all knowledge relating to this area that's important for you. What advice would you give to other companies that are trying to develop that positioning as the source of authoritative knowledge on their topic of expertise?
So that's a great question. The first answer to start off with would be the number one thing in inbound marketing is content. So you could have the prettiest website out there, but if you have no content, then it's, who's going to come visit, who's going to stay on your site. So develop content. A big strategy of mine is to become this Wikipedia. Is I'm just a marketer. I don't have the expertise. However, I do have a team, and like many of you who work for AE firms, you have engineers that are experts in their areas. Getting time to sit down and talk to them about what's going on in the industry currently, and creating content around what they have to say, and showing that your team, those people, are thought leaders on that. And that requires a lot of work. Like it'd be great to have somebody with a journalism background, because they could just sit and interview all afternoon and come up with great blog articles. And once you have a good series of blog articles about a topic, that quickly leads into being able to create really great white papers, which would go back to the gating information, so you would know who's really interested in your information. But yeah, content just takes a lot of time. Identifying the resources who have the information, making sure the information you create is unique. So, we're a Deltec partner, so I'm actually out there trying to outcompete Deltec with creating more compelling content than they do. So that takes a lot of hard work, and my little team over here, we're constantly talking to the consultants, working with them hands-on to try to get into their brains to find out what our clients are really needing to know.
Got it. Any follow-on questions on that? So here's one. I know for a variety of reasons, marketing often ends up in the driver's seat for the client experience and client feedback efforts inside these firms. But what does a marketer do when someone isn't following the established feedback process?
Luckily, in my case, I'm not in charge of that fully. Our main people's bosses, our vice presidents, are in charge of that. But everybody seems to follow the policies and procedures. They have it set up where emails go out and let you know you haven't sent a survey out. But we do a lot of, internally, we do an internal newsletter, which we feature the feedback we get from people. So, we can highlight people who do really well, and people want to be part of that list. That internal newsletter goes out every month. People want to be sending out surveys, so they get highlighted. Us being a virtual company, having everybody all across the United States, we don't ever see each other. We don't know what each other are working on. So we recognize in that internal monthly newsletter saying, hey, great, so-and-so got a compliment from so-and-so, and the comment was this. Really gets you to highlight what you're working on and show the rest of the company that, hey, I might be in my own little chair, my house in the corner, but I'm out here working for us and working hard and making our clients happy.
So what would your recommendation be to marketers who are in charge of the feedback program and employees aren't following protocols? Do you have any advice as to how they could manage that?
To be honest with you, I'm not quite sure right now offhand. So marketers always are in that tricky boat where we want information and we're always looked down upon. So the marketers will try to, if you would use the term, manage up.
Right.
That might be a little challenging. I'm sure there's ways to find ways to do it and incentivize people to do that. Like I said, we use that internal newsletter to really let people brag about themselves by getting good positive feedback. That's an incentive. But I think just making it part of the company culture and just making sure people know, like, everybody else is doing this. Don't be the guy in the corner who's too cool to send out a survey. You know, not public shaming, but it is, you know, company culture thing. If you're not part of the culture, then maybe you're not a good fit.
I like how you are, even though I heard you say on one hand, it's not really something you're driving. I've heard a lot of what you said, marketing, supporting the culture and the adoption by incorporating this in the newsletter and internal communications. Marketing very often drives a lot of that inside companies. And you're applying the toolkits for marketing and making sure everyone in the company is aware we're doing this, it matters, people pay attention to it. I think that goes a long way towards driving adoption. So really good to see that happening. Again, I'll pause for a break. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So I heard definitely in the video that you can use some of the feedback to pivot through proposals potentially. And I know that a lot of clients that we work with, they're really, really interested in challenging feedback for process improvement. One of the questions that I had though was from a marketing perspective, is there anything that you do or could do with challenging feedback that you get as a part of your platform that you can share either internally or externally?
Could you be a little more specific? Like maybe is it you're looking for maybe communicating about that throughout the company or maybe creating content around that challenge?
Both of those, yeah.
I definitely feel that you can always, that's one thing you start finding what's the best word for it? But you find a trend, and if you find a trend in comments from clients, that's definitely something you can address. Maybe it's they seem to have the same problem with the software they're using. Maybe that identifies a trend there. Maybe you find a trend in how we're doing something on a consulting wise. Like currently we're working hard on doing a lot of people, bringing people from vision to vantage point. And we're getting a lot of positive comments on how we're doing that. So we can see a lot of trend there, knowing that we're doing the right thing, and we can create content and use that information to share with the other clients that haven't gone through that process that, hey, we have a successful process here and it's coming across from all of our clients. So using that information and those quotes from our clients really adds a lot of power to our messaging is.
Claire, did you have a question?
Yes.
Great.
Ryan, you had talked about using client quotes based off of the feedback you've received. Do you ask the client specifically for a quote to use, or do you just let them know when they're sharing that feedback that sometimes that feedback is used as a quote to promote your business?
No, actually, we always ask, and it's a great opportunity to reach out, thank them for providing feedback. It's a great opportunity to have a little conversation about what's going on with the organization, especially right now in these times during COVID. You can sit down and find out, hey, how's your company doing? And by the way, you mentioned this in a survey recently, and we really thought that was a great quote. Would you allow us to use that in our social media marketing? So it's definitely a great time to reach out and have a full conversation and get permission.
I've seen a lot of people try to build in a permission question into their client surveys. And I've always thought they were leaving a real opportunity on the table because what you want to do with feedback is respond to it immediately. And when you've got a raving fan, someone who's saying, man, that was amazing, there's no better time to call, say, thank you for the feedback, really understand what created that value and that outcome, and then ask for the permission to use it. I don't know why you would want to skip that conversation.
Right. I mean, surveys should not be used to remove conversations. They should be used to prioritize conversations.
Yeah.
I think the professional services industries as well, that we generally have better working relationships with our clients. And I think we're generally regarded a little bit better. And so I've been trying to coach people a lot this year on the whole concept of a good survey response generally triggers and tells you what you're doing right.
Mm.
And so, when we talk about what we're doing right with regard to the awareness cycle of the client journey, where all the marketing activities are happening, identifying what the marketing materials, what the sales presentations, what the sales process is doing correctly or accurately with regard to helping move the client or the prospect toward you, or getting the existing client to buy something else. I think that's sometimes more important than the detractor types of pieces of information that we get.
Yeah. It's also interesting, Ryan, James's question brought this one up. I'll hold it though. Right, looks like you came on here. Do you have a question?
He's on mute.
No, I was actually just popping on the chat to say great point, Mitch. So I really like that. That's because for me, it's always about the messaging internally within our firm to make people not fear the voice of the client, okay, which sounds really draconian, but it's true. People want, we're engineers and we want to sort of control the messaging from the client even. And what I like about what Mitch said is it says that in a sense, first and foremost, you want to hear what you're doing right so you can do more of that. And that may be more valuable than hearing about detractions and detractor or whatever, negatives. And I would tend to agree with that from my experience in looking at feedback. I thought that's really, because half of this game is not getting and dealing with the feedback. It's convincing your firm to be really excited about asking for feedback when feedback is an unknown. It's like when we were kids and we wanted to ask somebody out. It was kind of terrifying the first time we did it or something. It's like, heck, we've been working for clients all the time. Why do we need to ask them what they think of us? So what Mitch gave me is a little nugget of like how to continue to convince the organization to be excited and be positive about it, because it's gonna open up doors for us.
Yeah,
it's not all about hearing bad things about us. It's about hearing building on those and acting on those good things.
Yeah, to tack onto that too. I mean, I think a lot of firms are looking more often they want the challenging feedback, but the real gold in delivering a consistent experience is getting that good feedback and finding out more about what you're doing well, so you can standardize that operational excellence that you have, that you can standardize a certain level of experience every time across all of your projects or matters or service lines or, whatever your business is. That really good feedback has a lot of gold in it.
I think it's also, and Ryan, as the designated speaker for marketing, I'd love to hear your perspective on this. I know marketing is a lot about telling the brand story and communicating the brand promise. All this positive feedback and the conversations you're having with what we do well, does that help you as you're crafting content to reveal who Full Sales Partner is, and by more clearly revealing who you are as a company, does that attract better clients?
Yeah, it's funny. We're in a project right now. I'm not going to say too much about it, but it's a big undertaking to really part of our rebranding process that we're going through. And that's something we identified up front. Anybody who knows my direct boss, Sarah Ganella, we seem like we're a fun group to work with. So in this big project, part of our rebranding and our initiative is our clients know that we're fun to work with, and we're making sure that our language is fun language. So it's not so uptight and resource planning and all this fun project management terminology. We try to find fun analogies, make it more engaging. And when we work with us, we're a lot of fun to work with. If you are a client, you'll know that for sure. I'm sure Ryan's been to one of our client events that we do once a year. We're a lot of fun, and that's what we're trying to portray as part of our brand. Is we get stuff done, but we do it in a fun way, and we make sure people understand at the end what they're supposed to be doing and how to do it properly.
So are you extracting testimonials then from your feedback that are specifically calling out the fun that they have working with you?
That's something we'll start looking for to do that. But we already see that in some of the testimonials, the way that people say the comments they make. Like the one I shared during that presentation seemed like a fun way of commenting. He had a fun comment, is like talking about the 3-step process and the scripts and how it made it so much easier. And fun is easy. When you make something easy, everybody's going to have fun at the end.
Right. Well, good. That was a lot of questions. We're coming up on the halfway point of our hour together. Becca, I see you just came on here. Do you have another question for Ryan?
Well, I do. And Ryan, I apologize. I just straight up did not watch your video. So I definitely will watch it after this. It's just the day got away from me. But so in relation to talking to clients about their experience, I'm the marketing director at an accounting firm. So I'm not normally client facing. I have been having more of those conversations with clients. Do you just reach out to clients, or do you go through the relationship partner? And maybe Mitch, if you have an answer to this, I know you do a lot of this too. Do you, ask the partner for an introduction or give them a heads up that you're going to be talking to clients? Or is this just something that I need to say, this is part of my job and I can see the client contact information, so I'm going to reach out to them myself?
So that's a great question. And I'll start with a topic I've mentioned during the video. Like you said, you didn't watch it yet. I think that I took this from the marketer's perspective of, here we are, we're on our own island and we don't get this information because who cares about marketing a lot of times? We're just there to help out, win business, do that stuff. A lot of people don't understand what we do. So a big point of what I made in the video was, first off, you have to have a tool that captures feedback. Secondly, there has to be a consistent process on using that tool for across the board for all project managers, whoever. And third, the most important thing is that feedback needs to be available firm-wide. So you can go see all the feedback that everybody is getting across the firm, and it shouldn't be hidden. And that way, what we have the opportunity in as marketers is we don't have to go ask for information. We can go find that information ourselves in the tool. And then once I find good positive intel, I can go reach out to that person who's in charge of that relationship and say, hey, great job on this client. This is what they're saying. I'd like to use them as a case study. How would you like to go about asking them to do a case study? And a lot of times they're like, hey, I'll just send them an email letting them know you're going to be reaching out to talk to them about doing a case study. Or if it's just a quote, they'll say, hey, just reach out, say you talked to me and you like the quote, want to know if you can use that quote. But yeah, the big point of that was us in our own little boats over here, not being told things. So using that tool to reach out and find that information and then go out and reach out to that owner, the client owner, and get involved.
I like that, Ryan. I would just add, Becca, what we did was the last question on the survey is thank you for taking the survey. We appreciate the feedback and we want to use it. Can we use any of the information you've provided for internal training or external testimonials? Yes, no, or please contact me to use my information. That gives the marketing function the capability of going right to the client. I think it creates that access point. But as you know, for us, if we're going to do a big case study, we go through the partner and get their not permission as much as understanding that it's happening.
And Mitch, that's great about case studies because Becca, you probably create some of those. That's another great part of that feedback, and if they can leave comments in that feedback, because you always want to get quotes for your case studies. And when you're working with clients trying to create a case study, I always like to make it zero burden on them and all the uplifting on us. So it's great if you can come to them with, hey, here's some quotes you left us in the comments, and then I want to weave these into the case study. So that's more information where you can also relieve the burden of the case study process off of the client itself.
And to warm up our audience, we included what I call shout out question in the survey. If you've had a great experience with one of our associates, please tell us about it. And so they identify who the associate is and then say what happened. So it creates, because most of our clients like working with our people, right? And they don't think of, you know, somebody as, well, you know, that's the engineer that we work with that we like, and we like the whole firm. They think about the individual engineer, right? And they think about what went right with them. So creating that personal connection, and then as that information comes in, we start posting it on intranet and say, hey, congratulations, you know, to Jim, Sally, and Fred, here's what this client just said about you. And so it becomes this, oh, here's what we're doing right. We're educating them about what we're doing right behaviorally. And we're sort of setting up the whole scenario of, wow, this might be a great client for a case study.
I would add to that, all the Becca's question, Ryan and Mitch's responses, they also bring to mind one very important thing for smaller firms like ours. We're well under 100 people. And that's to sort of make that maturity shift from your project manager, that's what we call them, being the client sort of connection, to having a firm to firm relationship more. And I feel like these, you can leverage like you called it the shout out question, Mitch, you know, that really encourages clients to recognize anybody, whatever role they're in. And it, you know, it could be somebody you expect, and you start to emphasize with your own people that we don't have our project manager and their project manager. That's not that's not 90% of our relationship. There's actually a lot more touch points, and we're trying to create more and more valuable ones. So that's sort of the journey. That's part of the journey we're on. So I just want to highlight that.
Right. Well, hey guys,
Thank you, everyone.
I'm sure there's more questions, more conversation to be had. We'll wrap up the formal Q&A here. Ryan, any closing words or closing comments before we wrap up the formal part of this?
No, I think the one thing we did leave off, I mean, I think we talked about the process and having a tool in the process and the access to the information. But another big part is make sure when you're sending out surveys, you don't allow anonymous feedback. Anonymous feedback is, to me, a waste of time. Allows people just to bash you openly and say whatever they want. Whereas if they have to have their name behind it, they're going to actually probably come to you with feedback that's going to be actionable, instead of you just being totally beaten up. So
Well, not even beaten up, right? I mean, if you get good feedback, you can't do anything with it.
That's a great point too, on the other hand, yes.
Yeah. And if you don't know who's giving you feedback, there is no action that can be taken. So.
Right. Well, Ryan, thank you very much for your time and contributions and your thoughtfulness to this. I know marketers all over are trying to figure out how to get their hands around the CX game and feedback in particular. A lot of wonderful insights. So thank you very much. And look forward to everyone who's not yet a member of CXps. If you like this content and want to join us live sometime, please go to clientexperience.org and join us.